Right now, somewhere outside your house, a bird is watching you. Not accidentally, not briefly, carefully, from a rooftop, a power line, a tree branch you stopped noticing years ago. And the unsettling part is, it may already recognize you. Most people move through their lives believing birds exist as background noise. Tiny decorations in the sky. Creatures too small, too simple, too distant to truly notice human beings individually. But science has slowly uncovered something deeply uncomfortable. Birds are paying far more attention to us than we ever imagined. They study routines, recognize faces, track behavior patterns, remember danger, remember kindness. And once you understand this, ordinary mornings begin feeling strangely different. Because suddenly the sparrow outside your window no longer feels random. The crow on the streetlight no longer feels empty. The pigeon waiting near your usual bench no longer feels coincidental. It feels aware. Maybe you felt this before without fully understanding it. That strange moment when a bird doesn't fly away immediately, when it tilts its head and simply watches you, as if it's trying to understand something. Humans instinctively find eye contact emotionally powerful. We evolved to read intention through eyes long before language existed. That's why being watched creates such a strong psychological reaction, even when the watcher isn't human. And birds watch constantly, not because they're mystical, because survival depends on observation. For a bird, noticing tiny behavioral details means the difference between life and death. One wrong movement, one hidden predator, one dangerous human, and everything ends. So birds became masters of attention, which means while humans stopped noticing nature, nature never stopped noticing us. But what researchers discovered next was even stranger. Because some birds don't simply observe humans. They remember them for years. Years ago, scientists at the University of Washington conducted an experiment that sounded almost absurd. Researchers wore masks while briefly capturing wild crows for study. Simple masks. Nothing extraordinary. Then they released the birds and moved on. But what happened afterward shocked them completely. The crows remembered the faces. Not for days. For years. Whenever the dangerous mask appeared again, crows screamed warnings from rooftops and trees. They dive-bombed the person, followed them through public areas, alerted nearby birds instantly. And somehow, other crows who had never experienced the original event learned the face too. The information spread socially, passed between generations like a story. Think about how unsettling that really is. A wild bird not only remembers your face, it tells others about you. Researchers studying corvid intelligence later discovered these birds possess astonishing cognitive abilities, problem-solving skills comparable to primates, social learning, emotional memory, strategic behavior. But emotionally, humans react strongly to one particular realization. The birds know who you are, not humanity in general. You. And maybe that's why encounters with intelligent birds often feel strangely personal. Because deep down, humans don't expect to be individually recognized by the natural world. We expect anonymity. Yet certain birds completely destroy that illusion. Crows remember threatening humans. Pigeons identify individual people who feed them. Mockingbirds attack specific humans who disturbed nests weeks earlier while ignoring everyone else. Even tiny backyard birds adapt behavior around familiar individuals over time. Your habits become part of their environment. Your schedule becomes predictable to them. And suddenly a strange question appears. How often are birds watching you without you realizing it? Morning coffee on the porch. Walking the same sidewalk every day. Parking in the same spot after work. Birds perched above may already know your routine better than some humans do. Not emotionally, pattern-wise. But humans are storytelling creatures. Once we realize nature recognizes us individually, we instinctively begin attaching meaning to it, especially during emotional periods of life, especially during loneliness, especially when we desperately want to feel seen. And this is where the story changes completely. Because researchers eventually discovered birds aren't only watching human behavior. They may also be reading human emotion. Animals notice things humans constantly miss. Tiny changes in posture, breathing rhythm, movement speed, eye tension, energy levels. A grieving person walks differently from a joyful one. An anxious person moves differently from a calm one. And birds are extraordinarily sensitive to behavioral shifts because survival depends on detecting emotional intention quickly. Researchers studying urban birds noticed something fascinating over time. Birds often react differently to stressed humans versus relaxed humans. Not spiritually, biologically. A tense body appears less predictable. A nervous person makes sharper movements. An emotionally distressed human unintentionally broadcasts instability through behavior patterns animals instinctively interpret, which may explain something many people quietly experience after difficult life events. They suddenly begin noticing birds more intensely. The crow outside the hospital. The robin appears during grief. The bird watched silently after an argument. And because the timing feels emotionally impossible, humans naturally begin searching for deeper meaning. Psychologists call this apophenia, the tendency to perceive meaningful connections between unrelated events. But emotional timing changes how coincidence feels, especially during vulnerable moments. And maybe that's why stories about birds become deeply personal so quickly. Not because birds possess supernatural powers, but because emotionally overwhelmed humans become hyper-aware of observation. A bird staring during heartbreak suddenly feels symbolic. A recurring crow after loss feels intentional. A silent owl outside your window at night feels like a message from somewhere beyond logic. Science offers practical explanations for all of it, but human emotion adds another layer. A quieter layer. The layer that whispers. What if this means something? And perhaps the real mystery isn't whether birds are watching us. Perhaps the real mystery is why being watched by nature feels so emotional in the first place. Maybe because modern humans feel increasingly invisible, ignored online, forgotten in crowds, disconnected from everything alive. Then suddenly a wild creature notices them repeatedly, and something ancient inside the nervous system wakes up. Not fear, recognition. Because for most of human history, humans existed in constant awareness with animals around them. We once understood warning calls, migration changes, and environmental silence instinctively. We belonged to the same living system. But modern life buried that awareness beneath screens and noise. Until one morning, a bird stares at you long enough to make you uncomfortable, and you realize the natural world may still know you better than you know it. But the most unbelievable part comes later. Because some researchers believe birds aren't merely reacting individually. They may actually be communicating information about humans constantly. To humans, birdsong feels peaceful. Background sound. Nature ambience. Something soft playing behind everyday life. But to birds, sound is information. Warnings. Coordinates. Identity. Territory. Threat levels. Researchers studying chickadees discovered that subtle changes in bird calls can communicate entirely different meanings. Some birds alter call complexity depending on the level of danger nearby. Different predators trigger different sounds. Different humans trigger different reactions. Which means somewhere above your head right now, birds may be discussing the environment around them constantly, including you. That realization changes ordinary silence completely. Imagine walking through a quiet neighborhood at dawn. A single bird notices you first. Then another stops singing. Then another shifts position silently on a rooftop. Invisible reactions ripple outward through the environment faster than humans can perceive consciously. And suddenly the world feels less passive than it did moments ago. More aware. More connected. More alive. Researchers studying crows found evidence that they socially share information about dangerous humans across groups and even generations. One bird's negative experience can spread widely through vocal communication and observation. So when birds react strongly around certain people, it may not be random at all. It may be reputation, which creates an emotionally unsettling possibility. Nature remembers behavior, not morally, behaviorally. Calm humans create one pattern. Aggressive humans create another. Predictable humans create safety. Chaotic humans create tension. And birds continuously adapt around those patterns. Perhaps that's why some people feel instantly peaceful around animals, while others make wildlife visibly nervous. Animals notice what humans often hide from each other. Presence, intent, emotional consistency. And maybe that's why eye contact with birds can feel strangely exposing. Especially crows. Especially owls. especially creatures intelligent enough to appear like they're evaluating you instead of merely observing you. Humans instinctively project meaning onto unreadable eyes. It's why masks feel unsettling, why dolls sometimes feel disturbing, why direct animal observation creates such strong emotional reactions. We cannot fully decode what they're thinking, and uncertainty creates mystery. But this mystery becomes deeply emotional when combined with loneliness. Because being noticed by a wild creature feels profoundly different from being noticed online. No performance, no status, no image, just existence. The bird does not care who you pretend to be, only who you are when you move through the world. And honestly, that may be why humans feel both comforted and disturbed by intelligent birds simultaneously. But there's still one final layer to this story. Because perhaps birds are not the only ones watching. Perhaps humans were always unconsciously watching them too. There's a reason birds appear in nearly every mythology on Earth. Not because ancient people were foolish. Because humans have always sensed something psychologically powerful about creatures that observe from above. In Norse mythology, Odin sent ravens across the world to gather knowledge. In many native traditions, birds became messengers between realms. Across ancient cultures, crows and owls appeared around moments of transformation, mystery, death, and revelation. Different civilizations, different centuries, yet the same emotional symbolism kept returning. Watchers in the sky. And maybe that symbolism survived because humans instinctively understand something modern life made us forget. Observation changes behavior. The moment you realize you're being watched, you become more aware of yourself. And birds create that exact feeling constantly. A crow staring from a telephone wire. A hawk circling silently overhead. A sparrow watching through rain from a windowsill. Tiny moments that interrupt the illusion that humans move through the world unnoticed. Because we don't. Every movement affects the environment around us. Animals react. Nature shifts. The world responds quietly to our presence every single day. And perhaps that's why bird encounters feel so emotionally charged during important life moments. Not because birds carry supernatural messages, but because they force humans into awareness. Awareness of loneliness. Awareness of grief. Awareness of routine. Awareness of existence itself. You notice how often you repeat the same paths. How predictable your life has become. How long it's been since you truly looked at the sky. And suddenly a tiny bird watching you from a branch feels strangely profound. Not magical, just real. Painfully real. Maybe that's the hidden truth beneath all these stories. Birds are watching humans constantly because survival taught them to observe everything. But humans become obsessed with birds watching them because modern life made us emotionally desperate to feel connected to something alive again. Something ancient. Something honest. Something outside human performance. And perhaps that's why intelligent birds linger in human memory so powerfully. Because their attention feels unfiltered. A wild creature noticing you without wanting anything from you in return. No transaction. No agenda. Just awareness. The next time a bird stares at you longer than feels normal, you'll probably pause for a second. You'll wonder what it recognizes. You'll wonder how long it has been watching. And somewhere deep down, beneath science and logic and skepticism, a quieter thought may appear. How many times has nature noticed me, while I was too distracted to notice it back? Have you ever had a moment where a bird seemed to recognize you in a way that felt impossible to explain?